Sullivan.
And thanks for joining us. Here's what I have at the top of the stack. We will get to the topic of the Fed in a moment. But first, beyond all the computer problems, the big issue this week was the knowledge that the White House knew that there would be massive insurance policy cancellations, which would pressure people to sign up for a mostly broader but also mostly more expensive health insurance policy. What happened to our freedom to choose a policy, good or bad, that we like and fits our budget? When did we say it's okay for the government to decide that a product we have purchased isn't good enough for them? Joining me now, a man who preaches liberty, former Texas Congressman Ron Paul. And Congressman, great to see you with your nice new studio and everything else there. But and I want to get to the Fed with you in a little bit, but I want to start off because you're a medical doctor, and I look at this and it seems like they're trying to sell the whole idea about health care. This is simply a financial product that they're trying to sell. And I was in the investment business for a long time. You can't be just technically correct. You've got to really explain everything to the public. Do you feel they're doing that?
No, obviously, unless they're doing it all on purpose, and some people suspect that they might be, in order to drive this whole medical care system in a certain direction. But it is a service as well, and it's being delivered from Washington through central economic planners, which, most conservatives and free market people don't like. But it's not like this just started. This is sort of the climactic end to this efforts. But, they started messing around with medical care in the federal government, for 40, 50 years in the 1960s. And every time they mess with it, they make it worse. And this, the ulterior motives here, I keep trying to figure it out because I work on the assumption that the insurance companies are going to come out pretty well on this. And it looks like, this is what's happening. They're allowed to raise the rates and take people off. And even prescription drug program the Republicans put in place help corporations. They help them relieve their burden and put it onto the burden of the overall taxpayer. So I think we keep drifting that way, but it's incrementalism. This episode is much worse, and the people are very upset with it. I don't see how it can possibly work, but the emphasis ought to be on liberty and freedom of choice. You mentioned that. Why don't we have freedom of choice? Even when the government intrudes on us in many of these areas, if you just allow the right to opt out in spite of what harm the government is doing, most of the time we can survive. The people will figure it out. And I think we should have the right to opt out of medical care. I think we should have the right to opt out of government schools. We ought to have the right to opt out of the government mail service and all these things. So, but we're at crucial times right now, and it really makes the difference on what happens on whether we will preserve the doctor-patient relationship, which is the most important issue for me.
Yep, I can imagine. But, you look at this, and the government has been very paternal with us for a long time under the guise of consumer protection. In fact, we even have a brand new consumer protection agency. So they're saying, we're here to protect you. This is just another extension of us, the big paternal government, protecting you from those evil insurance companies. And you need a villain, and insurance companies are easy to blame.
Well, that's traditional. The do-gooders always say we have to take care of the people. Community Reinvestment Act was to take care of the consumer and protect them against the evil bankers who wouldn't give out bad loans. So expand the credit and give out bad loans, give everybody a house, and the value of the house goes up and everybody is happy until the bubble bursts. But it was all done in the name of protecting the consumers. The regulations ultimately help the big guys. If you have banking regulations, usually the bankers are behind the scenes writing the regulations. If you have regulation on drugs, it's the drug companies that write the regulations. And most of the people in Washington are well-meaning. They say, well, we really have to protect the people against these evil bankers and the evil drug companies. But they end up writing these regulations, and the consumer gets really hurt. And look at what happened in the housing. People lost their houses, the people that were supposed to benefit from all these programs.
But you bring up an interesting point. And again, now this week, the president has already started to throw the insurance companies under the bus, saying, we didn't cancel your policy. Those guys did. Look over there. Don't look at me. And yet at the same time, if I was an insurance company and you came to me and you said, what we're going to do is we're going to try and get the people off of those $50 policies and make them pay $500 for a policy in I would go, wow, look at the premium increase I'm going to get.
Well, the one problem there is whether it's flood insurance, housing insurance, or medical insurance, the word is used erroneously. This is not insurance, and you know as well as I do that insurance is supposed to measure risk. But when you call it government insurance and tell the insurance company what they must do and what they must provide, then it becomes forced welfare. So this has been the biggest problem that we've had, is they pretend this is insurance, and it isn't. It's nothing more than a government mandate and a dictate, and they're looking for who's going to pay for it. So the people who need the insurance the least are the ones who have to pay for it, because there's a larger number of people in the older category who wants and needs the medical care, and they call it insurance. It has nothing to do with insurance. It has government central economic planning, which is the real evil.
So get your doctor hat on, do the prognosis on this. I mean, is this going to implode? Is it going to implode in 6 months, a year? Or is it just going to be Congress is going to keep tinkering with this thing for a decade?
They're going to keep tinkering with it until it collapses, which could happen before 10 years is up. Incrementalism, that's the way we go. Even if Democrats have a major role to play, they're going to back off from it. They've had to back off and admit, that there's some serious problems. But even if the Republicans get in charge, they're not going to get rid of all of Obamacare. Their record is so poor because they've always advanced government involvement in medical care. So this is likely to continue. But when a financial crisis hits and we have a dollar crisis and we can't afford the welfare and the warfare state, that'll all change, and then we'll have to rebuild again. But right now there's going to be more and more government. But even today, in spite of all this, I've come across some individuals who are breaking out of the system, opening up their own clinics and offering surgery for cash for about 1/10 of what happens if you go through the insurance system and all the bureaucracy. It is out there, and it's available.
But that's for you and me. We can afford to do that. But again, if you're on Medicaid, oh my gosh, the system is already stressed, and they're pouring more people into it. How is somebody on Medicaid ever going to find a doctor, or why would a doctor want to do business at Medicaid prices?
Well, this is the whole point. Government programs fail, and they fail the people they're supposed to be helping. And what is their answer? Just throw more money and come up with gimmicks and force insurance companies and politicians and force one person to pay for somebody else's. They don't believe in freedom is the problem. They believe in coercion and force, and they don't understand how the market works.
I've had a lot of people on my radio show call and say this is all a conspiracy to make this whole thing collapse so that we can get to universal health care.
Well, that's probably a direction that we're going in. I don't know whether they sat around here and 12 people conspired to do this. I think it's a conspiracy of stupidity and good intentions going the wrong direction, because a lot of people are doing that. But I do believe there's a lot of influence in Washington, no matter what system that we have, of big corporations. They have big information, whether it's the military-industrial complex, the medical-industrial complex, the drug-industrial complex. All these big companies have a lot of influence, whether Democrats or Republicans. I believe that the insurance companies are going to be all right, because they're getting rid of their policies that are marginal, mainly because there have been too many regulations. Now they're going to get bailed out, and the little guy doesn't get some help. So this is just a complete lie that government helps poor people. When the government gets involved, the poor people get poorer. And this is one tenet of the Austrian School of Economics, is that when you spend money and you have all these programs and you have a lot of debt, you destroy the middle class. And that's what's happening. The middle class is shrinking. Poor medical care, poor housing. It's much worse. But this has all been explained in Austrian economics, and people need to understand
I think the middle class knows their income has been going down and more rapidly now than ever before.